Hi everyone. You must be gluttons for punishment because this is a second road marking presentation today. So I will try and keep it as interesting as I can. My name's John Warne. I'm from WJ. I'm the Group Business Development and Marketing Director. I've recently been described as a road marking nerd, which was a real highlight in my career so far. Today I'm going to try and answer that often asked question, what road marking should we be using? For those who like an executive summary, I'm going to start with it depends, and we'll go through the presentation and I'll try and explain why it depends. Before we start, just a little bit about WJ so you get some context about why we're talking about road markings. We are the largest road marking contractor in the UK. We've got 3 plants actually manufacturing our own road marking material as well. 2 of those are in the UK and one's in Belgium. We've been delivering road markings for well over 35 years. We have a huge experience across the business and we're really well qualified to support local roads authorities delivering road markings across your networks. We do that with a number of you guys already. And yeah, we've got a lot of experience of doing it. We do believe our vision is safe and sustainable journeys for everyone. That is a guiding principle of what we do. All of our research and development is looking at how we make things safer, whether that's for the road going users or for our operatives. It's all about safety. And after safety, it's all about sustainability. How do we do that in a sustainable way, whether that's the materials that we use or the way that we deliver them or helping products last longer? So why are road markings important? I think it speaks for itself. Along with potholes, road markings are often the first evidence that the road user will have as the state of the road. How well are they maintained? But they're also a critical road safety tool. They help provide guidance on the layout and the rules of the road. They minimize confusion. They reduce accidents and save lives. They are road safety markings. They promote safer and a more efficient use of the road space, and they're excellent value for money. I would say that, wouldn't I? That's my job. But they are excellent value for money, and they represent a small fraction of actually the cost of installing roads, but present a huge first impression to those users. What types of road marking materials are there? Well, you've probably been exposed to 2 world firsts already today with 2 UV systems being demoed. I'm not sure how you get 2 world firsts. It's actually neither of those are world firsts because they've been using UV cured materials in New Zealand and Australia for about 4 years. So a bit of reality check there. But what other types of materials are there? Well, there's tapes. Tapes commonly used across the continent, particularly in Germany. They are a very high visibility, high durable way of getting markings, longitudinal markings on the road. However, they are expensive. But when you start to look at life cost and measure life cost against the durability, actually they do become part of a road marking armory. Then we have thermoset materials, commonly called cold applied plastics. They rely on a chemical reaction to cure or set the material. You'll have seen the UV system that was demonstrated this morning, and no doubt the one that's going to be demoed for the first time in a few minutes' time. That uses UV light to cure the materials, but essentially it's a curing process, it's a chemical process that's set off. There's often 2-part products or 3-part plastics like MMAs or your epoxies. Again, is a chemical reaction of 2 components that changes the chemistry of that material from one thing to another, and that's actually an important distinction. Once that becomes that new compound, it cannot revert back. Okay, so there's no going back once you've had that chemical reaction. The strengths of cold plastics tend to be durability. And also, obviously, the removal of danger of burning people. Without the heat being required that other products do, it's a much safer approach. However, it's not without its own hazards. Inhalation, fumes, there are other things to consider when you're using thermoset materials. And then we move on to thermoplastics, probably the most misnamed product out there. thermoplastic talks about the characteristic of the product, not the material that makes up the product. So in heat, typically around 200 degrees C, the material is easily shaped and moldable. That's where the thermoplastic comes from, and is actually reshapeable. So once you've put it in place and you heat it again, you can then take it and reshape it and reuse it. The hot application is probably the biggest challenge that the road marking industry faces in the delivery of thermoplastic materials, and often it's one that we've avoided, if we're really honest about it. We've avoided it, or we've minimized it by using PPE rather than looking at how we deliver it. And that's an area that the industry really needs to look at over the next few years, how we make it safer. Innovations like our thermoprint machine that actually takes operatives out of the road and uses a dot matrix effect are innovations towards safer application, but it's something that we need to consider. And then the final type of materials is typically your paints. They come in two main forms, solvent-based or water-based. Paints are typically used in lower traffic environments, things like car parks, and they can be used as overlay products. They tend not to last as long as the other types of materials. So how do you know how your materials are performing? National Highways insist all road marking materials laid in the UK network come with a road trial certificate. But there haven't been any road trials for 12 years. So how can you innovate and introduce new road products without road trials? Our approach to that is going to France and Belgium. So fortunately for us, France and Belgium run annual road trials, and we go and join in those and lay our products there. The road trials are conducted under very strict governance to BSEN 1824, which governs the chemistry of the products. So you have to give your ingredients set to the authorities before you undertake the road trial, and then your products are sampled against that to make sure they comply. But also things like dosage rate, so how thick the material is when you apply it, and how many beads you might use on the material are all governed and very tightly measured to make sure that the certificate that comes out the back end of those trials represents the product that we were putting down on your network. Those road trials typically are held annually, but last 2 years. They're on roads that have got managed or average 1 million vehicles a year. So they've got an average wheel over based on traffic counts on those roads. If you miss those windows, what other opportunities have you got? Or if you don't want to wait 2 years to get a new product out there, what other opportunities are there? We use accelerated wear testers. There's 2 currently certified, one in Spain and one in Germany. They are a good guide to how products will perform in sterile conditions. They're done in a lab. There's no climatic variation. There's no rain, cold, etc., which might impact it, but it does allow you to have a measure of how a road marking is going to perform. The other thing about the wheel is that it allows us to test beyond P6, which is where road trials tend to stop. So we can start to look beyond that to P7, which is a 4 million wheel overs and is the maximum that road certificate product will go to at the moment. That's really interesting because with the change of formulation that we're starting to see in products, we're starting to test products to 12 million wheel overs and beyond that. And I think it's time that we consider specifications and changing the specifications to reflect the increasing traffic on the road, the increasing weight of cars on the road, all contribute to wear. So just standing still with our standards isn't going to help us move forwards with a road with a road marking. So once you've undergone road trials or through the road tester, all products should have a product certification. As a local authority, you are absolutely entitled. We'd even encourage you to ask your contractors to look at the road certificate or the trial certificate for the product that's being laid to understand where that fits in the product portfolio. Not all white lines are the same. they don't perform the same way. Some last longer, some reflect more, some have better ingredients than others. There's a vast array of different products on the market. So when you get a certificate back, what are the key performance indicators on there? These are the main ones that we've picked out. Skid resistance, really important for motorbike safety particularly, but it's safety on the road in generally. Skid resistance is typically increased in the road marking by introducing aggregates or glass grain, and often at the expense of visibility, retroreflectivity. You can't have lots of glass beads and lots of glass grain, so they tend to be one or the other, or finding a nice balance between the two. Then we've got luminance, the degree of whiteness in daylight of the line. How white is the line? Typically, whiteness comes from titanium dioxide, a product you'll all be familiar with. Assuming you all brush your teeth this morning, it's typically found in toothpaste, and it gives the line the whiteness. One of the most important characteristics is visibility, and that comes in retroreflectivity. So at night time, how visible is the line? There's 3 measures for retroreflectivity: dry retroreflectivity, wet retroreflectivity, which comes after rain, so it's typically measured after 5 minutes of rainfall in a measured environment. And then there's rain retroreflectivity, which is measured at 20 mils of rain per hour. And then the retroreflectivity, the visibility of that line is measured then. Water kills retroreflectivity, which is why if you're driving on a wet night, the lines become really hard to see. So it's really important for wet night visibility that we have decent readings in that area. The retroreflectivity is given to the product by putting beads on top of it. With some materials, they have embedded beads. That helps retroreflectivity stay with the product for its entire life cycle. Or typically, very thin materials will have beads dropped on top. And unfortunately, after time, those beads will wear, and only the beads will wear. And so thinner materials will lose retroreflectivity, but will still have a condition. So the line will still be there, still be visible in daylight, but you'll find at night time the visibility of that will drop. Then we drop down to cure time, also known as no pickup time. This is measured for cold plastics and paints, and is typically the time that it takes to dry or cure. And that will range from a reading of T0, so less than a second, to T1 is a second, T2 is 10 minutes, and T3 is less than 20 minutes. So different times of curing time, but it helps you understand how those materials will actually perform on your road, and is all viewable through the product certificates. And then we come back to durability as measured in wheel overs. I talked about road trials, goes up to P6 usually. The wheel will take it to P7 and beyond. We really think it's time to extend those parameters and look beyond that for greater durability. So I mentioned durability in terms of wheel overs. The question we get asked most often is, what does that mean in terms of my road? How long is it actually going to last on my road? Real hard answer to give. There are so many variables. But what we've seen recently in creating CPCRs, complementary product category rules, for road marking materials across Europe, various countries have put forward what they believe standard road marking will last for. So this table comes from France, and it would start with 1 year for solvent-based paints through to 9 years for tapes, and an array of different variations in between that. So other countries have tried to give standardized wear. I've picked out a different country here. This is from Germany. Hopefully you can read this at the back. Some of you might be going, really? High wear? Thermoplastic lasting 8 years? Not in my area, it doesn't. Actually, what this represents is the different way that Germans treat road markings. So often road markings in Germany are inset, they're inlaid into the road. There's a milling operation that goes on to create a strip that allows the road marking to sit in there. And what you can see from this is that that approach substantially increases the life of a humble road marking. CPCRs used for creating environmental product declarations. The environmental credentials are really important and becoming a bigger part of what we do. As a sector, we're pretty immature reporting life cycle assessment. We tend to be able to report on the materials, so A1 to A3, and the application of the product, A4 to A5 in their scope. So what's the carbon cost of the product, and what's the carbon cost of delivery? What we're less good at or more immature in is understanding the use life of the product, hence the generalizations that we saw earlier, and then even worse, assessing the end of life and the circularity of various road marking systems is very rarely considered. If we think about stages A1 to A3, that's around the product, where it comes from, how it's made, the energy involved in making it. What we can see is a table there of the different values of carbon per tonne from thermoplastic. That's WJ's thermoplastic, so it's based on bioresins, which give it a very low carbon content and is verified by Lucidian, through to more expensive in terms of plastic materials, in terms of carbon materials. So there's a huge range of carbon cost of materials across the system. But it's not just about the actual cost of carbon of the materials. That's only part of the equation. We also need to consider the application type. And there's a number of different application types. So typically we can see hand-applied work used for legends, letters, arrows. Handwork is still the most popular application method for those types of markings, although hopefully you saw our demonstration today, and spraying an arrow done really efficiently and effectively by highly skilled, qualified operatives. That skill comes with training. The RSMA provides training across the sector for all of our operatives, and it's important that we make sure people laying lines are trained appropriately. So we talked about installation making a difference, but what we can see is whilst it makes a difference, it's not as big as you might think it is. So even within the products here, we can see that within thermoplastic, the application represents less than 7% of the carbon cost of the product when it's laid. And when you move to a van or cold applied, you've got opportunities to move to electric vans. We can see that number drop to less than 1.5%. This is an area that as an industry we're continually looking at, and hopefully you'll see a genuine world first today outside in the first thermoplastic electric truck, genuinely the first of its kind in the world. It's powered completely by electric. There's batteries on there. I'd really encourage anyone that's interested to go and talk to our team outside and understand more about that. We're looking at electric boilers and prams, not just replacing the truck itself. And at the moment, that's destined for use in London, but we're continually looking at other opportunities to move that around and to roll it out wider and look at alternative power to keep that carbon cost down. But then after installation, looking at, I'm being told my time's nearly up. All right, so I'm going to speed up. I talked about in use, end of life and circularity, representing some of the challenges that we typically don't cover. We tend to think about durability, but we don't think about how we reuse materials. WJ, we've got trials going on at the moment in Belgium where we've got a completely recycled material being used on the road. We are looking at how we take carbon out and remove it even further, whether that's from recycled materials and reformed aggregates. We believe that there's an opportunity to have carbon neutral road markings in the very near future. So back to the question that I started with, and hopefully this will be it is my last slide. What road marking should you be using? The answer is it depends. It depends on what sort of road you're looking at. So we've got a rural road, high speed, no lights. Retroreflectivity is really, really important. We move to an urban housing estate, low speed, probably street lit. Retroreflectivity is not so important. condition, durability is probably more important. We drop down into an urban environment. Again, high torsional forces, lots of turning, urban roundabouts, durability really important. Into a tunnel, those environmental conditions, things like fumes become really important. That's a really good application for road marking tape. And then dropping onto the strategic road network, high speed, actually, what do we really need? Visibility, again, is really important. So the simple answer is there is no simple answer. Hopefully that's given you a bit of a thought and some thought of what materials and what goes into road markings. If you have any further questions, hopefully I've run out of time for questions. But please come and visit anyone from WJ on the stand. Come and talk to us and we'd be happy to talk you through our products and our services. Thank you.